Welcome to the demo on gridded drawing. Gridded drawing is basically just when you take a photograph, you lay it out on a grid like this. You can see I have it labeled from A through I on the side and 1 through 9 on the top. You can see that this is a self-portrait, and I have matched up the grid with my photo. So momentarily we're going to see this photo come up here. If you look in cell B2, you can see that that hairline matches up with the photo. And if you go down to C2, that continues, D2, it continues, E2, it continues. And you can see that I'm being really specific in looking at where those different features are hitting lines in those cells, making little marks as I go, and then being really, really specific with my line work. Just filling up the cell with the correct amount of line, making sure that things are hitting on the correct points. After that, I start working in my light and shadow after I erase all of that grid. So I've gone in, I've erased those pencil grid lines, so I'm left with just a line drawing. And that line drawing basically gives me a guide for working value in. For this drawing, I really don't want to have really any evidence of like hard line. Like I don't want to see an outline around your portrait. That's not what I would like to see. I want to see implied lines where we see changes in value. So I want to see where edges are just based on changes in value. You guys know what value is, all those steps, those changes in grays. We've done multiple value scales now. If you don't know what a value scale is, I don't know what to tell you. But I would really strongly recommend working in your darkest areas first with one of the ebony pencils. So I've gone in, I've worked into my eyes and my brows and that shadow on my nose, and now I'm going in and working into my hair. I think it's a really good idea to be aware of where you're going to see individual hairs and where you're going to see large clumps of hair. You aren't going to see individual hairs every single place, especially in areas on the side where there's shadow. Sometimes you will see a bit of texture, but like around the hairline, you might see some in the individual brows, facial hair, things like that. But in large clumps of hair, you might lose some of that detail. It's important to be aware of your pencil pressure. So heavier lines, lighter lines. Also be aware that hair is very reflective. So there's going to be areas of strong highlight and strong shadow in your hair. On this left side of my face, that whole side of my face is in deep shadow. My light source is coming from the right side. It's casting a heavy shadow on the left. So I'm just going to let you guys watch as I work here. Continue to develop these light and shadow areas in the face. Paying attention to my photo, I'm working down into the neck, creating more shadow where that collar is. Just slowly working it through. I have used a blending stump a bit in my initial pass that you guys weren't able to see. I had some technical difficulties in my first video. Unfortunately, it was lost. So you'll have to fill in the blanks. I will do the other eye in the video a bit, I believe. So you can kind of pay attention to that. But it's just paying attention to light and shadow, areas of dark, areas of light. Look for those highlights, look for those reflections. Don't assume anything. Just because it's the white of the eye doesn't mean that it's white necessarily if it's in shadow. on my left eye, you can see that there's a strong highlight on the white part of my eye on the right side, but there's a fairly significant gray shadow in the white of the eye on the left part of that left eye. If you have areas of highlight, you can always work in with an eraser. You'll see me do that here pretty shortly, where I kind of overworked some of my shadow in the lower part of my face towards my mouth. I'm building in soft tones for the hairline. It's a fairly soft transition. We lose some detail and shadow. Your initial pass very well may not be your final pass in an area. It is much more common than not that you're going to have to go back and reinforce shadows, readdress things, look at your, drawing as a whole, and assess value scale, and make adjustments as you work. This compressed paper roll that I'm using right now is called a blending stump. It just allows me to smooth out shadows and reduce texture, which can be very helpful in areas like the face, right? These can get quite dirty to the point where it might lay in more tone than what you really want. At which point you can clean them. The way of cleaning them is just grinding off that dirty paper with a piece of sandpaper. I'm trying to be really true to my photo reference and really match those grays as closely as I can. I know already I'm going to need to go back in and reinforce that nose shadow. I believe I do later on. There I am going in with my eraser, pulling out those highlights again. Hey look, I heard me. Going back in and reinforcing my nose. Guys, I can't stress enough the importance of taking time and really, really focusing. I did nothing but just look really intently the entire time I was drawing this at my photo, at my drawing. You should be looking at your reference at least as much as you're looking at your drawing, if not more. Observation is going to be really key to this. I apologize, the camera did go a little out of focus when we started up the next video session, so it is a bit blurry, but you can still tell. Just developing hair. I'm being really conscious of the direction that my hair is flowing. It's getting combed downwards and backwards from my temples, so I am trying to match that stroke. I'm paying attention, again, to light and dark areas, so I'm just going in right now, developing that hairline, getting those darkest areas of my hair, paying attention to where I have soft changes versus areas where I see individual hairs, areas where I see dark shadows, areas where I see highlights, going in with that blending stump and just blending it. That hairline isn't quite perfect, so I'm going to keep going in and developing it, bringing it a little bit further down on the forehead. Again, this is not a slap it in there and it's perfect kind of process. This is sort of like writing. You do your initial pass, you go back, you edit. Does it look right? No, doesn't. You got to go back and edit. All right, I'm just continuing to develop the hair. I think there was a portion where we missed where I went in and developed some of the tones in the bottom of the chin and the beard on the chin, the second half of the mustache, and the other part of the eye. I apologize. This right side of the hair has a lot of texture. That's the side that the light is hitting on. So I'm going to go in, really try to pay very close attention to those light and shadow areas, develop them. Again, paying attention to direction of my hair, where it kind of clumps into different strings, and how those strings kind of lay over top of one another and layer. I'm paying attention to the reflective quality of my hair, areas where it's catching light, areas where it's got in shadow, and then you can even see I have started to drop in some of those cast shadows on my face. Again, pay attention to the pressure in your marks. Sometimes laying a stroke in with an initial heavier pressure and then lightening up can be a really great technique for developing hair. Really pay attention to your line quality, thin, thick, constant pressure, or initial, more forceful pressure and then lightening, or vice versa. Hopefully this is something that you are becoming aware of. I emphasize pencil pressure to you frequently, and we've done more than one exercise where I've emphasized line variation. So hopefully this is something that you've discovered independently. If not, now is the time to put this into practice. I've got most of my really dark areas in here. I've gone in and I'm just starting to work in these mid-tones, starting to make connections, get these hair pieces kind of all falling together. Going in, hitting some of those cast shadows, refining the shape of the face a bit. Here's my product as it stands. It's not finished yet, but this gives you an idea of where I'm at. Thank you.